Alright, shout out to my friends on Facebook. Shout out to Joseph Hill. Shout out to Leah Baby. She still got that eczema on her skin, you know. Shout out to She Better. Shout out to Ishmael Shakur. Shout out to Elizabeth Adrian, my ex that never happened again. Shout out to Ayan McKinley, one of my friends. Shout out to Shamar Shorter, the crazy bitch. Shout out to Jasmine Davis. Shout out to my good blood brother Thais Marsh. Shout out to Lil Holly Hassan. Shout out to Kiara Lovely Henry. Shout out to Kyrie Stanfield. Shout out to Lil Nani. Shout out to Nazim Derry. Shout out to Shout out to Tati Rose. Shout out to Lexi Van. Shout out to Nana Honey Boo Skittles. Shout out to J. Michelle Tordovich. Shout out to Chris Torres with his gay ass. Shout out to Nigel Baskerville, bestie. Shout out to Brandon Torres. Shout out to Nathaniel Negron. Shout out to Zion A. Montague. Shout out to Lisa Perez. Shout out to Soyen Wright. Shout out to Love Cap Kent Benny Kendra. Shout out to Ariel Daniel Javier. Shout out to Lamar Cash Roberts with his ugly ass looking like a damn piece of dookie. Shout out to Javon Bailey. Shout out to Alexi Gonzalez. Shout out to Ajay Oliveris. I used to have a crush on her, but then I dumped that bitch because she was ugly as hell. Shout out to Zay Dallas. Shout out to Roger Akins. Shout out to Alessandra Prito. She needs some proactive because that bitch is ugly. Shout out to Ayana Salam with that big behind bump on her head. Shout out to Nani Murray. And shout out to my old friend Amina Salam. Shout out to Gianna Baladi. Shout out to Nadia Samu, Bessie. Shout out to Bree Thickums, Big Butt. Shout out to Cookie Young Money, Santiago. Shout out to Fat Man. Shout out to Marshawn Xavier. Shout out to Nas Polo Gang Davis. Shout out to Miora Rose. Her dress is ugly as hell. Shout out to the stripper that's ugly as hell. Chadwick, whatever. Shout out to John John. Shout out to Sweet Brown, Journey Ward. Shout out to Tyshawn Stanley. Shout out to NigelMorris, which is another boy. Shout out to Johnny Hart, which is Ryan. Shout out to Nabina Baskerville. Shout out to Frito Martinez. Shout out to Anthony Letson. Shout out Chris Rios, one of my cousins. Shout out to Daniel Samuel. Shout out to Naya Bill, one of my friends. Shout out to Andrea. I miss you, Andrea. Shout out to Naja Baskerville. Shout out to Leslie Mazier. Shout out to Kashona Gordy with her badass. Shout out to Todd Hollister Boy Jones, ugly as hell, probably a fake Hollister. Shout out to Zaire Davis. Shout out to Ahmad Robinson with his smart ass. Shout out to Dollar Boys Cidium, whatever that fuck says. Shout out to Samara Machine. You still my baby, Samara. Shout out to Jayana Conrad. Shout out to Tatiana Love, that whore. Shout out to Corey Crawford. Shout out to Yam Love Pink Simmons. Fuck. Shout out to Tanara with her fish lips. Shout out to Abner. Shout out to Laquan. You know he get beat by a stop sign in the corner. Funny. Shout out to Jamaica Wood Chips. Shout out to Zaire. Shout out to Damali, whatever her name is. Shout out to Precious when she got fucked up by Nodula. Shout out by Destiny. Shout out to Samaya. Shout out to whatever. Shout out to Javon Royster. Shout out to Dion Alexander. Shout out to Janai. Shout out to Massai. Shout out to Justin J. Stacks. Well, that's about it. Whatever haters, remember, whoever hates sucks dick. So, I'm gonna see y'all later. Bye.